welcome to another episode of the Strong Family Project podcast. Today we're going to be going over exactly how to run a family meeting and why you should care about a meeting. Mel, read us in.
Okay, welcome to the Strong Family Podcast, where we guide you on the path to raising confident, independent, and resilient children in a strong and family environment. Oh my gosh, in a strong family environment.
You were really confident with not looking at your notes and you went for it.
I did go for it.
I was about to start with a compliment because we're shooting these 7 episodes virtually in a row in our over the course of a couple of days. We're putting them all out at once for you, and we're making great project process. And now we both have an error, and we're going to have to mark us down. We're barely passing in a public school, but what's important is the content and how you are receiving it. And so we want to make sure that we're putting out the best content for you in terms of being able to apply it and use it with your families to improve your day-to-day lives. The best resource we have for you is over at the strongfamilyproject.com website. We'll drop a link in the show notes because these first 7 episodes go over what we call the Strong Family Path. They are the critical elements that we've discovered that have given a lot of peace to our family life and a lot of growth in our family and our children. We wrote them down for you. We put it on a couple pages of a PDF. We gave you the worksheet. We give you exactly how we did it. We're giving it all away for free. If you go over to the website, click one of those buttons that says Start the Path Now, you can download that PDF. We have another bonus over there for you. We did an episode on core values. Some people gave us the feedback that they're not quite sure where to start. So we even took the first step for you and have a list of 50 core values that we give you for free in exchange for simply following us on Instagram. We're taking a lot of these clips. We're shortening them for you. We're going to put some new content up there for you. But we do have that as an additional freebie to make sure that you are on the path and have everything you need to be successful. With that in mind, that'll be our hub over at strongfamilyproject.com. These will be on all major podcast platforms and YouTube. It used to be big into the YouTube game back in the fitness days, back in the early, mid-2000 zeros. I don't even know what they're said. Like you say the 90s. I don't know what the
2000s.
Zeros are called, the 2000s. Sure. Used to run a YouTube channel that got very popular in the fitness space. Very popular in terms of old YouTube, 10 million or so views on how to do exercise and how to set all that stuff up. And so we're applying that to this podcast project, and we like people that engage. We like the process, so that's why we're doing that. I like the video aspect, even though when I go for walks, I want just my audio podcast, and I don't want my phone to die on me while I'm watching YouTube. So anyways, there's a couple ways you can engage. You can comment on YouTube. You can message us right through the website. But we do have a rule, and this is what I recommend through the learning process for you, especially during the first 7 episodes. If you pick up a tip, press the pause button. Write that tip down in the comment section on your podcast platform and press submit. That way we can see what information people are finding most valuable, and we can do follow-up episodes on it. It'll also help us grow the show. If you want to help us build momentum and have us buy in to keep providing you with all this free content, please do subscribe. Please do comment. With that being said, you know the rules. Mel, go ahead. What are we on today?
We're going to talk about family meetings.
Ooh, meetings. Aren't they bad? Don't I have to do those at work? I get so sad and emotional when I hear the word meetings.
Oh, that makes me sad. Well, now that you mentioned work, I think that's a good place to start. Because we really got this idea from meetings, the way that Joe would run his meetings with staff. That was kind of the impetus of how this idea came to be, and we obviously changed it a bit for the family, but it really came from the structure you use with your staff. Right? It's a weekly staff meeting. That's how you got that structure.
Yes, and there are negative connotations around meetings. That's why I said it sarcastically earlier. You probably have been in some tremendously boring meetings. That's why I want to share with you the system on how to not make your meetings suck when you sit down with your family and not put the kids to sleep and feel like they're being dictated to. There are specific purposes for running these. Now, if you're following along on the podcast, you haven't met us in person before. We haven't even really done an introduction episode on why the heck you should believe us and who we are. I will hint at it a little today, but we're not going to until we get to past the first 7 episodes. I don't want you to care about our background and our resume. I want you to take a look at the content and find it valuable. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about us during this first few episodes. I want to give you the straight stuff you need. We can get into talking about that later. However, I did spend some time, 8 years as a high school teacher. I have my master's in education from Colgate, and we would have staff meetings when I was a teacher. And I remember one such meeting, and it was part of the reason why I ended up leaving the education field and entering the entrepreneurship field. I like to volunteer for everything. I just want to participate, and they had these meetings over this new wing that was being built on the school. It was very exciting. Our classrooms were going to be in the new wing. I'd be teaching economics and participation government in a brand new classroom. And we had a meeting, and I thought maybe like to plan how the flow is going to go, the higher level processes of the utilization of the space and all that stuff. And we had a meeting, and it lasted for an hour and a half, and it was on the color of the desk chair. So
gosh.
these are like single unit desks, like the ones that flip up. You flip the desk up, and then you sit down in the chair. And the school colors are green and gold. And the desks were green, slightly different green, or slightly different green. And we talked for an hour and a half, and there people just talked about it. Like, I don't care, choose one of the colors, just make sure they're all the same. And that, I thought I can't sit in meetings like this anymore and talk about desk colors for another hour and a half of my life. And it was a bunch of them like this. Like, I want to make meaningful progress at a much quicker pace. And I'm not okay with using my time in this way. Now, love the classroom part of it. We'll talk about that in another episode. Love the classroom management. The kids were hilarious. They were a good time. However, the meetings were, my eyeballs hurt. My feelings hurt just thinking about them now.
But to contrast that, now that we've done this for a while, the kids even ask us, are we having a family meeting? Like, they get excited. So if you could imagine to be able to have that response, if you're at work and you're like, I can't wait for this meeting, that's what this has done for us.
Yeah. So after that experience, I read books like Death by Meeting, I believe the Patrick Lencioni book, and many other ones, because people do have that feeling. Death by meeting is how companies die. You get all these higher level employees, and all they do is meet and talk and don't actually do, and they just it goes back and forth. So we came up with a system that works for the family. It is part off of things that we learned in entrepreneurship. When I am paying a lot of payroll and we are all sitting around a table, we better be efficient. And when I'm writing the checks for it, I realize I want these meetings to be run very well, and I want people to lead with clear objectives. I want people to be heard. I want them to have an opportunity to lead. And we have to take this time and make it very meaningful, because it is expensive time. Now, that was the start of it. I wasn't mature enough at that time to realize that all time is expensive time. I related it to me writing checks, but how you spend your time is just as important as how you spend your money, if not more important, because time is this minute that I'm spending telling you the story is gone. I'll never have it back. I can always get more money back, but time you can't get back. So you want to make these family meetings meaningful and efficient. So it is a development off a process that we used at work, long story short. So we do family meetings. Our goal is every week, and your goal is to have it at the same time every week. Ours are Saturday at the dinner table. If you have the luxury of having dinner with the family, which we do now, and we do encourage, if you can, to do so, that's a great time for a family meeting. Just have a little bit of an extended dinner time on Saturdays. Mel, why don't you explain how we start off the meetings?
Before I do that, a thought came to mind. I think there's a connotation about family meetings that it only happens every once in a while when there's some kind of big item to discuss or to tell the kids. And I think it's important that we do this consistently on a weekly basis, so it's not like, oh, there's a family meeting, oh my gosh, what's going to be revealed? So it's a consistent thing, and I think that feeling that it's going to just be when something big's happening kind of goes away because it's consistent now. So the way we get it started, we, in our episode 1, discussed core values that our family has, and we have 6 of them. So we start out every family meeting where every person in the family goes around and says how they've embodied one of the values in the last week or so, or since we did the last meeting. Sometimes we'll tweak it a bit and we'll have family members point out how somebody else in the family embodied the family value. But whichever one we choose, it's always one way, or even more than one if you have more to share, that you've embodied one of the family values.
We can do it in different ways, and we have done it in different ways to give you some different ideas for your family meetings. You are starting with core values. That's the principle. We have had them draw a picture of them embodying one of the core values in the last week, and they hold it up, and the whole rest of the table tries to guess what they drew. Sometimes it's compliment someone else at the table on a core value that you saw them embody. And so we're getting core value practice. We're celebrating bright spots. We are highlighting accomplishments to start the meeting with a positive focus on our core values.
Yep. And it's great. I think it's really exciting when someone points out somebody else because, again, it brings us back to that foundational element of family values. So we're kind of all looking for each other to embody those things, and we're cheering each other along to do that. Are we moving on to the next part?
Do it.
Okay. Part 2 of the family meeting is discussion topics or headlines. So this can be anything that anybody wants to bring up to discuss as a family. One topic that's come up often for us is tech time and how that's going. It could be something about school, some kind of field trip that's coming up we have to discuss. But it's any topic that we as parents want to discuss with the kids, or that the kids want to discuss with us. So anybody can bring up a topic to talk about, and then we come up with a plan.
This is a massive benefit in a lot of different ways, so I need to highlight this. During the week, when something goes off, let's say tech time, or using tech times, or one of the kids gets real sassy about something, the worst time, or I get real sassy about something, the worst time to deal with an emotionally charged issue is right in the moment when everyone's emotionally charged. However, most families have that as the only time they deal with issues. They don't have a place to put these discussion topics. So things will fester under the surface, and it'll grow, and it'll blow up like, oh, you never eat what I make for you. Like, all right, well, why don't you just take a breath? Let's talk about it during the family meeting. That way we can come up with a solution when we all have lower heart rates and we're not all emotionally charged about this issue. The discussion topics are extremely powerful for moving issues from the heat of the moment to a purposeful and practical place where they can actually be solved before you're throwing out words that you can't suck back in the moment. So discussion topics aren't just like, hey, here's a field trip update. Yes, it does include that. Yes, this sport's starting. Yes, this is where we'll need to be on this day when. But it is pushing those issues and giving the kids the validation that their opinions are important, and not saying, hey, I don't want to talk about that right now. Hey, bring that up during the family meeting, because that's when we are in the mindset and the focus, and we created a plan to solve this instead of having nonstop issues all the time. Like, if you can, here's another caveat. It's from the business world too. A lot of times that issue would just solve itself by the time it gets to the family meeting. It wasn't that important, and the person figures out they have some self control over fixing it, because they know you're not going to solve it for them to the family meeting. If they want to solve it faster, then go ahead and do it yourself.
Or even if you're going to wait till the family meeting, sometimes I'm a big post-it note person. I'm a big list person. So sometimes we write it down. We just have a list somewhere. These are the topics that come up, because sometimes you'll forget. Maybe it'll resolve itself, and that would be awesome. But if it doesn't, then we remember and we put it on the list of something to discuss at the meeting. But you're right. It's great to know that there's a time where that will be handled.
Sometimes you get to the next day and you're like, well, what was I mad about again yesterday? Like, you don't even remember.
Right. You got to take the emotion out of it. It's true. And then everybody can be heard when the emotions aren't high as well.
And Mel brought up some important ones. An example of a discussion topic would be, Henry brought this up at a family meeting. So it relates to Henry and Logan and their use of tech time. So we want to teach useful use of technology, not no use, not unlimited use, but how can we use this helpful tool best in our household? And so the kids get a series of 15-minute tech times. And Henry was finding that they were having the temptation of putting them all in a row, so they'd get 45 minutes. And he brought it up during the family meeting and said, hey, I think we should put a little waiting period between our tech times. And we talked about it, and they decided to utilize their time a little bit differently. They'll do 15 minutes, and there must be at least 15 minutes break between tech time. I loved that idea. And the kids came up with it themselves from discussing it, because part of technology is that draw to not get off of it. I'm going to watch one more show. I'm going to play one more game. And all of a sudden 15 minutes turns into 2 consecutive hours, and you haven't trained the ability to stop and start. And so them bringing that up and them coming up with that solution was brilliant, because now they have to start their tech time, be efficient with it, because they already know what they want to do, because they only get 15 minutes, and they need to stop it for at least 15 minutes, go do something else. And then you can come back to it if you still have something that you want to use it for. But that conversation and that solution all came from the kids' discussion during our family meeting, versus a blow up situation where the kids are on it. And one day as a parent, you just decide that's enough. You're on it too much. Go outside. And they're like, well, what's too much? Did you define it? Like, how much what are the parameters here? What are the rules of the game that's not being defined for your children? That's your job. And you can do that very easily with these family meetings.
And it's empowering that they are part of the solution. Oftentimes, like you mentioned, the solution is much better when they come up with it. They have ownership of it, and kids have amazing ideas. They have their own mind, their own perspective, and oftentimes they can come up with a solution in the family discussion that works. And again, if it's not working, we try it out for a week. Next family meeting comes up, let's discuss it again. So that's cool.
If you send your kids off to school and you get frustrated when other kids don't respect them, and they don't respect their opinions, and they don't respect your child's unique value they provide to the classroom or to their friend circle or whatever else, they get stepped on at school or whatever it is, that's because you didn't teach them and you didn't respect their unique value and their unique thoughts that they bring every single week in a family meeting environment. This is a very easy way to teach your kids some higher self-value. And I'll work this in now. There's I think it's a 90s football movie called The Program, about a college football team. And one person, Latimer? I don't know why I'm looking at you, Mel, like you've ever seen The Program.
Nope.
Trains all off season and gets a little help from some substances in the off season. But anyways, he trains really hard, and he goes from scout team, and he runs in the locker room, and he looks at the list of the starting lineup, and he's running his finger down his list, and they see his name, first defense, and he headbutts the window and says, first defense, baby, seat at the table. He's so excited that he had earned a seat at the valuable table of the starting defense for college football in the movie. Now, what he's celebrating is that he's earned a seat at the table. You have this in your house. Your children have earned a seat at that table, and it's not by you dictating everything to them. It's by you valuing their opinion and teaching them how to think through problems. The family meeting table is a great place to train leadership. Let them talk. Let them discuss. Train problem solving. I don't know what I want to do with your tech time. Here's what success looks like to me. You're not obsessed with it. You guys come up with some solutions. It teaches them to value their own opinion before they go out to a world where everyone's fighting over who's right and who's wrong. Well, they value that, and they build a little bit more self-confidence. So they're not persuaded by everyone else, which is extremely detrimental, in my opinion. All right, so we get through discussion topics.
Okay.
Now it's time to tighten the buckle and deal with the tough stuff. Mel.
Yes, number 3, tough truths. And this is a real special part of the meeting, I think. And this is why. So a tough truth is something that you want to bring up and point out to someone in your family in a loving way. So I'll give an example of one that Henry brought up to me a while ago. I think he was getting he didn't like one of the dinners I was making, and he felt bad about it, and he didn't want to tell me. But because we've created a situation at the family meeting where these things are okay to bring up and there's not going to be retaliation or whatever, he brought it up, and I said, okay, great, let's come up with a list of meals that that you'd like me to make for dinner, and let's go from there.
Wait, you didn't get all defensive about it?
No.
Oh, whoa.
Okay. I did not.
Because why do you think? Was it because you were calmer in the moment and it was a good time you're ready?
Yes, if I was eating it and he's like, this sucks, then I might be a little bit more upset. Mm-hmm. But again, we've cultivated this time of the week where we can talk about these things and kind of pull the emotions out. And honestly, I appreciate that they can be honest with us in that way. I think that's really important.
The ability to speak your mind, even if the other person is not going to like it, is got to be a skill you have, because there's so much stuff I don't like. Now you got to pick and choose. You got to pick to see if that person even matters to have the discussion with, but you can't just be persuaded because you want to go along with the flow. You have to train the ability to speak your mind and be heard.
And be able to temper your reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So the tough truths, it can go from parent to child. And I think that's what somebody might initially think, oh, it's parents telling the kids what they're doing wrong. But we encourage a parent to tell something to one of the kids, or we encourage the kids to point things out to each other, and also for kids to point things out to the parents. So that we've created that situation where we all are comfortable to do that. And this can probably be the toughest part of the meeting, because it can be a little uncomfortable. Like, let's say you want to bring something up and you're kind of nervous about it, but I don't think we've ever regretted doing it. And we're doing it from the perspective of, we're doing it because we care about you. We're not criticizing you from a negative perspective. When I say we, I mean anybody who's bringing up the tough truth. We're doing it because we think this is something that could improve your life if you focus on it.
I love a good tough truth. And if you've listened to the previous episodes, I've weaved some in and I've used that language before. And this is where it comes from, because I believe in the value of tough truths as a athlete. If the coach stops coaching you, that's when you should worry, because that means the coach doesn't really care about your progress anymore. Tough truths I see as an opportunity to cut right to the heart of the issue, quit tap dancing around with passive aggressive nonsense, discuss it, take it, and then either chew on it and improve, or chew on it and say something back. And it goes, I think more often, this is an avenue for the kids to give us tough truths, like Mel said. Now, I've given them to the kids, and I'm not going to use any specific ones to throw them under the bus, because they were doing excellent follow-up episodes on each of these podcasts. But I've said things like, hey, Logan, I'm going to throw you under the bus once. He's the tech director. You could turn off the cameras on me. But I said, hey, Logan, I don't think you're getting through your full morning workout, and I would like you to use the timer to make sure you do. I don't think it was anything malicious. He was just like, wanted to get through it, his morning routine, and get upstairs so he could quick rush through them and get some tech time. And he took it very well, and he started using the timer and realized, like, hey, my morning workout is more than 2 minutes. Like, it doesn't make sense that I'm done in 2 minutes. And he has improved it, and he even added more squats, and he stepped up, and he does punching bag stuff, and he added more since we had that conversation. Now, to be vulnerable, I've taken some tough truths. Henry gave me one a few weeks ago. During the week at dinner table, he was telling a story, and I cut him off to move to a different topic. And he spoke up and said, Dad, I was telling a story the other night, and you cut me off, and it made me feel less important, and I didn't appreciate that. And Henry's in the room. Henry, you can acknowledge it, but I apologized and said, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I did it. I owned it. It was a perfect opportunity for me to be accountable as a core value. Now, could I have made a lot of excuses like, oh, we had to get to X, Y, and Z event after dinner, so I was trying to rush it a little bit. I wanted to get to the next topic. I wanted to move on. Maybe I was a little tired. Like, those are all excuses that I did not put out in the air, because I wanted to use it as an opportunity to take an honest example, which he was right on, and how to wear a tough truth. And you're role modeling. You're not, you don't know what it's like to be me. Like, how stressful was my, like, whatever. That's partially true, but whatever. Like, that wasn't the outcome, and it wasn't how he perceived it. So I had to own it and take it on the chin, because he was right.
But again, in order for that to happen, Henry had brought it up to me at one of our evening debriefs, which is going to be another piece of this path, and that we're going to talk about on one of these episodes, the first 7. And Henry had brought it up to me about how it made him feel that his daddy had cut him off. And I said, well, this is a tough truth. You need to give daddy this tough truth.
Thank goodness we're talking about this system where you can have kids be valued and give them a platform to speak these things versus bottle it up and wrestle with it in their own brains.
Exactly. So I encouraged him. I said at the next family meeting, or even sooner if it's very fresh for you, you can bring it up to him, because we want to cultivate this kind of environment. And sometimes it's going to require an extra nudging, because it is uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And Henry did it, and now, Joe's aware of it, and we can make changes.
We've seen the kids apply where they'll speak up more to their teachers now if they maybe need some extra help or don't know something. Like, this is all value-driven behaviors that they can learn and and apply outside of the meeting. But this is your opportunity to teach them exactly how to do these things so they can use it in the real world. Now, after we hit our tough truths, which is sometimes there aren't any, sometimes there are, we set our weekly commitments, which is you have to watch the last episode. We're not going to go into it all again, but the last episode we went into how to do your goal setting and what weekly commitments are. They'll say how they did in the previous week. They'll set their new one, and we'll set our new one, of course, for the upcoming week. And then we do acts of appreciation, which you go around the table and we give each other a compliment. Sometimes we do compliment the person to your left. Sometimes it's compliment the person to your right. Sometimes it's compliment everyone at the table. Sometimes it's freestyle, compliment anyone at the table. But we want to bring back another positive focus. We use core values at the beginning for positive focus, and now we're hitting gratitude and appreciation, going around the table and telling each person something genuine that you appreciated specifically from the week. It's not like, I like you. Like, no, just like the goal setting episode, as you're seeing this all weave together during these first 7, more specific, the better. I appreciated how, this is one that I received, and I still remember it. Henry told me, I appreciated, Dad, how you stayed after soccer practice for 30 minutes after everyone left to kick the ball with me. And so it's a very exacting comment from his last soccer season that I was just determined to keep playing until he wanted to leave. When it got dark, I wanted to leave. Lights turned off in the fields. I wanted to leave, but I didn't say anything because I was really focusing on this time is for him. And he appreciated that and told me at the family meeting, which could have gone unsaid, but that was a good act of appreciation. Mel, what do you got on that?
Well, one compliment that Logan gave me was that he loves how much I give him hugs. And that means a lot because last episode we talked about the morning routine and when they walk in the room and I give them a hug in the morning. And you're not always going to get feedback about it, but hearing that from him only motivates me to do that more. And all these steps kind of meld together in a beautiful way. So I appreciate that very much. And I want to bring up that we do have a 5-year-old. So we have 13, 11, and a 5-year-old. And the family meeting structure, Everett, the 5-year-old, doesn't necessarily participate in every single aspect, but he tends to stay at the table with us. He likes the compliment section. We try to include him. We give him a compliment. So I just want to keep in mind, I think someone had asked us, the Bardas had asked us, how young is too young? I said it's never too young. They have, I think, a 2-year-old, something a little bit like that.
You can imagine growing up in an environment where this happens at 1.
Right. Because it could be the parents having the meeting together, but they include the kids so that they are part of it. They don't have to necessarily bring up a topic or whatever, but they are a part of it and they get used to that and then they expect it. So it becomes just a natural part of the family. And then the last piece that we do, anybody can participate in. And that is handshakes.
Yeah, the handshakes.
And hugs from mom.
Handshakes. That's the rule. Mel tries sneaking hugs. And we finish the meeting officially with a nice firm handshake, 2 pats on the shoulder.
Look them in the eye, right? That's really important.
Yes, look them in the eye. We do the handshake. We pat them twice on the shoulder.
I pat them many more times and then I hug them.
I don't want to get, this has been all content, but I don't want to get off on a silly story, but I do hate when you meet someone and you get that weird, like, hug, do I hug, do I, like you get a firm handshake. My hand's out early. Like, I'm not looking for hugs. I'm not looking for hugs from people I don't know. I'm not looking for hugs from people I do know. I'm rarely looking for hugs other than people that live in my household. So when someone approaches, the hand's already going out. Well, they might be going for the arm around. They're catching the handshake. And so I get to practice that every week. Firm handshake, 2 pats on the shoulder.
Okay. I'll remember that. Although you said it's okay for people in the house.
I did.
You worked in a little loophole for me. Thank you.
Let me summarize the family meeting. You don't want death by meeting in your household. This isn't an opportunity for parents to dictate to the kids everything they've done wrong. That is the absolute worst way to do it. These can be positive and help your family grow, or if you run them like crap, they could feel like crap. And so we gave you the structure today, and I tried to include some of the psychology behind the why on each one of those steps. The family meeting structure is there for you on strongfamilyproject.com. And so you can download this stuff. You can have it in your hot hand as you go and run your first family meeting. I would love to hear how it went, and I would love your feedback on what the struggles were so we can do a follow-up podcast, family meeting, Q&A. Like, this is the stuff that the more you engage, the more that we can help, the more energy and value we get out of it, the more excited we are to shoot these episodes when we see the questions and we see the comments, not just like my mom watching it and be like, oh, is that, how is that? Like making funny comments like, oh, whatever. Got to engage in the process. Got to dive in. You got to find, if it's not us, that's fine. Find some mentor, because family life isn't really taught. We're doing our best to share with you from our experience what we've discovered, and we want to be on this journey with you. So give us some feedback so we can help you even better.
Yeah, we understand that every family is different. Every family structure is different. And that's kind of what makes this exciting. It's not cookie cutter. We're giving you this family meeting idea, and we'd love to see what you do with it. And we, as one of our family values, which is personal development, we're always looking to improve. So I would love to get ideas from you that we can then implement and try out at our family meetings.
Yeah, tough truth. The lighting set up weird on your podcast. Like, yeah, I know. I bought these podcast lights, and I don't know, there's 4 of them came. I think I had 3 lights, threw them up on some poles. We're doing what we can, or shouldn't wear a hat, it covers your eyes. Like, all right, I'm going to wear a hat. But no, not that kind of feedback. We're looking for the actual, what kind of questions you have. What content did we miss, or what content did we deliver? And you perhaps see in a different light from our 4 lights that are right in my eyes. And I should look up how to set up better if you're watching on YouTube. So yeah, let's land this airplane. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Strong Family Project podcast. Get your free bonuses at strongfamilyproject.com.